Well, welcome and come on in. And let's talk about long-term care. That is, what you should do to make your long-term care plan when your spouse or parent will need long-term care. Hi, I'm Jim Schuster, certified auto law attorney. I have over 25 years' experience helping families deal with the crisis of long-term care. This is not a legal video. Rather, I'd like to share with you my experience developing a practical plan, practical advice you can use to create your long-term care plan. Now, first, let's talk about what we mean by long-term care. Now, if you search on YouTube and look up long-term care, you're going to find a lot of videos about long-term care insurance and a lot of videos of lawyers talking about the nursing home and Medicaid. Now, let's be clear, in this video, for our purposes, long-term care begins before somebody enters the nursing home and most commonly begins in home. Now, there is an exception to that. I did have a client who's 83 years old. He fell out of a tree, trimming the tree at 83. He was riding a bike before all that, too, all over town. Well, that fall put him in the long-term care, and his daughter came to see me, and we helped them get through it rather well, I think. Okay, so there's two types of long-term care assistance. One is somebody who's mobility impaired, maybe from that fall, like fell out of the tree, maybe a stroke. But they need help getting up, ambulating, getting up in the morning, toileting, bathing, dressing, making meals, things like that. They still have a sharp mind, and that's the other kind of long-term care person. Let's say somebody has Alzheimer's dementia. Anyways, this person with the Alzheimer's case, commonly they don't need physical assistance with mobility, but because of their cognitive deficits, they do need guidance in home, maybe at preparing the meals for them. Maybe mom can, if it's mom, maybe she could warm it up in the microwave. Also, they'll need somebody to take care of all their business affairs, though, and that's a very important part of it. Maybe managing medical, making doctor's appointments, getting the lab results, getting the prescriptions sorted out, all those sorts of things. So by long-term care, we mean a person needs assistance with the activities of daily living, maybe the physical items, maybe sometimes called the instrumental activities of daily living, taking care of business, shopping, paying bills, so on and so forth. Now, to make some points clear, I'm going to use from time to time a hypothetical couple called Bill and Mary. And let's say Bill is age 80, has a heart condition, generally poor health, but he's the caregiver for his wife Mary, who's 78, physically well, but has Alzheimer's disease. Now, Bill and Mary have 4 children. The oldest is Carol. She's retired and lives in Massachusetts. Then comes Bill Jr. He's employed, doing very well. He lives in Chicago. And then there's George, who's in the military, currently stationed in San Antonio. He plans to retire in 3 years. And finally, the only local child is Susan, fully employed and has 2 high schoolers getting ready to go to college. She is a very busy woman. Let's begin with the 7 common mistakes. Here are 7 mistakes you should avoid in making your long-term care plan. Okay, the first common mistake, planning for death. I often hear people come in and say, well, I need a will. And why do you need a will? Well, because my wife has Alzheimer's or something like that. Now, a will is an important part for your estate planning upon death, because what a will does is it says who gets your property under what conditions after you die. And that's the big important point. A will has no effect as long as you're alive. Second common mistake, doing just enough for today. Now, if we use our hypothetical Bill and Mary example, in that case, we might say, well, Dad will take care of Mom. Whenever she goes to the nursing home, then he'll be relieved of that duty. The problem with that kind of plan is, what if Dad is not available? What if Dad is in the hospital? Who will take care of Mom then? Okay, the second part of that one is, I often hear somebody say, well, I added my daughter to my account so she can pay my bills. What else do I need to do? Well, having your daughter on your account so she can pay the bills perhaps is good enough for today, but what if you are in the hospital? What can she do then? She can't do much of anything except pay the bills. And there's a third kind of sneaky problem here with this one, and that is if you do just enough for today, and then months or maybe years from now, you need more authority than just being able to pay the bills. What if the person, let's say mom or a spouse, is unable to sign any legal documents at that time? In that case, you have to go to the probate court. In other words, don't do just enough for today. Plan for the long term of long-term care. Third common mistake, planning for the nursing home. Now, there's three components to this. The first part is related to the ones we just talked about, and that is, well, when mom needs a nursing home, we'll take care of it then. We'll go see a lawyer then, but right now we'll just keep things going. The second part is planning for the nursing home means that you're not preparing for today. You're making no preparations at all except for years down the road. And as I have found, long-term care begins in home and ultimately ends in the nursing home. And that's the next point. Some conditions like, let's say, Alzheimer's, you can clearly say it would be long-term care in a nursing home. But other conditions, such as heart conditions, there probably won't be long-term care in the nursing home. In home, yes. Nursing home, no. Now, there's a final component of planning for the nursing home, and that is what some people hear about. We call it Medicaid planning, and it goes something like this. Well, we heard that nursing homes cost over $10,000 a month, and we can't afford $10,000 a month. So we heard that there's this thing called Medicaid planning, and Medicaid is this program that'll pay for long-term care since Medicare won't. Medicare is only post-hospital up to 100 days rehab. So Medicaid will pay for the nursing home, but Medicaid requires they have almost no assets, and they have this 5-year look back. And 5-year look back means if you give away any money in the 5 years before you apply, they'll deny your application. Well, the point here is that, one, Medicaid always has, let's say there's allowances for people who spend their money when they apply, and we could get into that in another video, but let's just say there are allowances, and it might be things like fixing up the home, things like that. In other words, you don't have to give your money away. And realize that if you give your money away, so in case you need a nursing home in 5 years, the problem then is, what if you need some help or some money before 5 years? You're in deep trouble. You don't have any money left. You don't have any options. So in other words, don't just plan for the nursing home. Fourth common mistake, not being aware of caregiver problems. Now, this is a big area. That's why we can't give it a nice, concise little title. There's many components to this. One, let's say in our Bill and Mary example, Bill is Mary's caregiver. What if something happens to Bill? Is there an alternate? Do we have somebody ready to step up and take his place? After all, a caregiver is a 24-hour job, taking care of everything. Whether it be mom, let's say, gets up at 2 o'clock in the morning and wants to go home. Yeah, it happens with Alzheimer's. Or is it bathing in the morning and toileting and getting dressed, making meals, taking mom to the doctor? Is it making doctor appointments? Is it calling up and finding out what the lab results are? Caregivers often have health consequences from being on the job with such a stressful situation. And that's the other part of it. It is stressful because after you're on call for months and months and months, and it goes into years, people begin to fray at the edges, let's say, and all the emotions from love, anger, aggressiveness, despair, all these emotions can enter in, and oftentimes we find that the caregiver's health fails. The first component, you have to have an alternate caregiver. If you don't know about the caregiver problems, you may not even think of that. The second one in the area of family caregivers is having a clear conception of what that caregiver will receive for the service, especially if that caregiver is a child. I have often heard some righteous son who never lifts a finger to help his sister, whose mom's 24-hour caregiver, and he would say in a righteous huff, "I would never take a dime of my mother's money." Well, the problem is, what if she's out of money, her credit cards are maxed out, and she has the choice of either continuing keeping mom happy in her home or putting her in a nursing home? The issue of caregiver compensation starts to raise its head. This daughter has given years of her life, 24 hours on call. What if mom says, "I'd like you to have this car after I die"? Or what if mom goes so far as to put her on the checking account? I think you can see where that goes. The next component, non-family caregivers. Now, I often hear, we hired this lady in the neighborhood. She used to work at a nursing home, and she's really good. The problem there is most people say, well, she wants cash under the table. The problem there is, there's two problems there. One is the tax problem. Under the IRS rules, she is an employee, which means you got to withhold her Social Security and FICA taxes, Medicare too. But the second, even, let's say, trickier part of that is if she's an employee, under state laws of many states, if she's injured on the job, she has the right to workers' compensation. What does that mean? What if she's carrying something down some stairs, she falls, busts up her knee real bad and her shoulder too, has to go to the hospital to get surgery? Who's going to pay the medical bills? And if you think your homeowner's insurance will, if they find out she's an in-house employee, they'd say, oh no, that's workers' compensation. You're not covered for that. Big problems, big time. The fifth common mistake, not involving the whole family in the long-term care planning. Now, I understand, and completely, a senior's affairs are private. I don't know any senior, mom or dad, or just a surviving mom or dad, you name it, who wants to tell their children their entire financial affairs, or what medications, what medical conditions they have. That's nothing they want to tell. So what do? Very commonly, most commonly, they involve one child in their plans. Often it's the oldest child. Well, the problem there is, once again, as I've indicated, caregiving of long-term care goes on for years, and the other children become, let's say, separated or alienated. Because what I see, and time again, it's almost as if the caregiver wraps his or her arms around the patient, mom or dad, and by the same kind of measure seems to push away the other children. So I heard time and again, well, no, you can't visit mom on Saturdays. She's got this going on. Or no, you can't come over today after all. She's not feeling well. She needs to stay in bed. Now, the other children have their issues of guilt. They feel separated from their parent. They start getting angry. They start questioning what's going on. And once again, if we use that example, the new car, then we hear things like, well, she bought herself a new car with mom's money, and she goes everywhere with it when mom's at home. So anyways, involving the whole family eliminates that kind of problem, and it even has an additional benefit of having your whole team on the field instead of just one person. In other words, let's say, now I'm presuming here, I'm talking to the families that have more than one child. If you only have one child or no children, this doesn't apply to you at all. If you have more than one child, then have the whole team there. Maybe one is an excellent caregiver, the other one's an excellent financial manager, good with numbers, but not so good taking care of people. Maybe another one's a good librarian or researcher. The more hands you have on deck, the better. And as I always note, whenever a senior goes into the hospital, it's never for overnight. It's always days on end, and the caregiver, especially in the case, let's say, of Alzheimer's, has to be there almost all the time. So who's outside taking care of all the business matters, the insurance matters, the home care matters, you name it? You need more than one person involved, the whole family. The sixth common mistake is making oral promises of inheritance. Now, I've seen this most often arise when there's only one caregiver and other children are left out. What if mom makes the mistake adding daughter's name to the bank account? Then when mom dies, the surviving owner of the bank account can close it out and take all the money. You could see that it comes to big problems after mom dies, especially when the other children coming around look for their inheritance, and the caregiver says, well, you weren't anywhere to be seen while mom needed help, so she said she wanted to give it all to me. Well, you know what happens then. They hire lawyers and fight it out, and now the family's fractured and they're enemies forever. Oral promises of inheritance are simply dangerous. The seventh common mistake, not consulting with the lawyer once you make your plan. Believe me, I have not touched on all the problem areas that I've seen. I just tried to give you a survey of the most common ones, but there are many other things that could go wrong. And if you consult with an experienced elder law attorney, he or she will be able to say, I see problems here with this. I see problems. And I'll just give you one little example. Many people think that a trust is the answer for everything. Well, I know one fellow down in Florida who says, well, let me talk to whom you propose to be the trustee. And sometimes he comes back to the client and says, I see problems with that person. They say, now I had the question, what kind of problems could there be with trust administration? I'll give you a couple hypothetical examples. Suppose that Bill wants to set up a trust for Mary should he die first. He wants her to stay in the home and be taken well care of. Let's say the lawyer talks to Bill's chosen trustee, who is Bill Jr., the oldest son. And Bill Jr. says, well, no, I don't think Mom should be at home. I think Dad should put her in a nursing home. That would be contrary to Bill's wishes, and he would probably not be a good choice of trustee. Second problem, suppose that Bill Jr. says that, well, I think my parents are just completely wrongly invested. I know I could double their investments. And well, that kind of investment strategy could be good for a young person, say in their 30s. But we're talking about taking care of somebody in her late 70s or 80s. No, you don't want to be risking all their money on a gamble that you can maybe double their return. If anything, it looks like you'd only be trying to shoot for a bigger inheritance. And of course, there's just many other problems. So let's just say that finally that a trustee is very high-handed, hard to get along with. It's his way or the highway. That would not be a good person for a trustee. So there you go. Consult with a lawyer, put your plans before, and at least you'll have the knowledge that you've done everything you can to come up with the best possible plan and you've avoided the most common mistakes. Good luck and talk to you next time.